In the spiritual community, you hear all of these incredible claims about how powerful you are, how you're a god, you're a goddess, you're the source of all creation. You're all of that. But how do you really know? How do you know you're not just kidding yourself? Today we're going to take a very straightforward and scientific approach to spirituality in a way that's practical and that you can prove out these incredible claims for yourself. Interested? Check this out. Welcome to the Power of Quiet, showing you a fast and practical and user-friendly way to realize what all these great spiritual teachings and spiritual masters are talking about. And not just in a way that you get it intellectually, but in a way that you really get it. You get it in a way that you can prove it. You can demonstrate these wonderful principles in your own life. And if this is something that you are looking for and you're new to the channel, then hit subscribe because you're going to love our approach here. You see, unlike the vast majority of teachers and gurus out there, we don't just talk about this stuff. We don't have a big uplifting conversation. See, talk is cheap. It's not what you could say, it's what you could do. And what we show you here is just simple step-by-step ways to realize these principles and really prove them out in your own life. Now, this idea that it's not what you could say, it's what you could actually prove. This is what I want to focus on here, because if you've been hanging around in the spiritual community long enough, and I've been hanging around this community my whole life, you've seen a phenomenon that Eckhart Tolle describes as a whole bunch of spiritual seekers. Never finding, they're just forever seeking for that ultimate truth. And they just stay at a certain level and never really move beyond. And the vast majority of people that are on the path get stuck in this state of forever seeking. And one of the aspects of being a seeker like this and being stuck is reflected in a common phenomenon that I'm sure you've seen, where people make grand claims and they repeat what they've heard from all these spiritual teachings. You see people claiming, hey, I am an unlimited being. I'm not bound to the confines of this limited physical form. I'm of the stars. I have all the power of the universe in me. I'm a god. Yeah, but these same people, they have to work for a living. They got body problems. They have struggles and limitations. And you also see people, they'll kind of like make an excuse for it. They'll say something like, well, I know that I'm unlimited, but I got this problem. Now, when people are either just admitting that they have the limitation, even though they're saying that they are all this that the spiritual teachers are talking about, or they're just repeating what they've heard and just claiming it, but not demonstrating it. Like their lives are not a reflection of abundance, of prosperity, of just unlimited being, then there's a disconnect between what they're saying and what they're demonstrating. And we can all find it within ourselves, where we aspire to something, but we don't step up and live up to it. So what is the difference? What is it that can keep us from getting stuck on this path and getting just caught up in our mind, thinking about it, talking about it, but not really doing it? And what does it really mean to do it? Now, I'm going to show you how to get into this path of actually doing it. But I want to preface this by pointing out a really good philosophy to hold on to that will keep you on the right path moving forward to the path of ultimate truth. And this comes from a really great master by the name of Levenson. And Lester was somebody who achieved an unconditioned consciousness. He was a real true master. And what's great about Lester was that he was very practical. See, Lester was a scientist. He was a physicist. And he took a very scientific approach on his path to realization. And being a scientist, he came from the place that it's not what I can say, it's what I can do. You could theorize something, but the theory does not make it true. It's what you could actually demonstrate and prove. And that marks what's really true. So he wasn't somebody that was just going to take it on hearsay, was just going to accept this great dialogue of how wonderful we all are. But he was determined to prove it out. Is this really true? I'm going to demonstrate it if it is. And it was that approach that took him from a place of, just confined consciousness like most of us are in our life, to being a realized master in a very short time, just 3 months. Now we could take the same approach ourselves and move forward on the path in a very grounded way, that we are always in the realm of what we can prove, what we can demonstrate. And that keeps us from just getting lost in fantasy, getting lost in hearsay, and just kidding ourselves. But instead of that, moving forward in a step-by-step manner, where I can prove this, and I could prove this, I could prove this. And moving forward this way, this will allow the truth that these masters are talking about to unfold very rapidly. Now this all starts by defining in the first place, what is truth? Now, probably the simplest way to define truth is that which never changes. You see, if something is true, or seems true, and it changes, it's no longer true, well, how true could it have been in the first place? Or something wasn't true and then it changes and it's true afterwards. Again, change means that something wasn't true, one way or the other. So, truth is something that is always true and is forever true. Now we can observe around us what's not true, and common things that we look to for truth. Like, we're always looking to our mind for truth. We're trying to gather information, compare things, come up with the conclusion of truth in our mind. But our mind is constantly changing. Our beliefs, things that seem true, they get debunked, they get shattered. And those beliefs, as true as they were one day, all of a sudden are no longer true. So how could they have been true to begin with? So our mind is changing all the time. Maybe the truth is not in there. Also, we can examine our body. Now, obviously our body is constantly changing. Every single day, something's different about it. And our body, as well as every other body, eventually, inevitably dies, crumbles to dust. So this thing that we are so identified with, that we place so much truth in, like, this is who I am. And we spend our whole waking life catering to the body, looking to protect this thing. Because we think that our safety and wherewithal depends on keeping this body safe. So we treat this as truth. But we see this thing is not permanent. This cannot be true. And also, likewise, the world. The world's constantly changing. The whole universe is changing, expanding, evolving. So how can that be true? It's changing every second. So all these things that we get so identified with and so lost in our thoughts, in our body, identifying with it, and being in this world, we see there is no truth to be found there, because all of that is constantly changing. But what is it that doesn't change? Like right now, what can we observe that never changes, something that we just can't argue against? The fact that we are, right? You can't argue against that. You can't deny that right now you exist. You are. And here you are. You have a mind, you have a body, you're in this world. Now, those things we often treat as real, but the real reality is I am the one that's experiencing these thoughts, that's listening to this voice, wherever it is, talking to me. I am the one that's feeling being in the body, experiencing that. I'm the one that's looking around and observing the world. Just I am. Now, just starting from this simple fact that we cannot refute, that I am, that you are. Now we can move forward from this. And the best way to move forward, and this is the way of all real spiritual practice, is dissolving that which is not true. And there's all sorts of practices, from meditation to yoga, and to what we do here, Lester's method of bringing up and releasing the untruth in just a very simple and user-friendly way. Through that elimination, we expand this truth of I am more and more until it becomes so self-obvious. We cannot deny the totality of what all these great masters are talking about, as wild as those claims may seem to be, about being omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent. You can do that, but don't just take it on blind belief. Take a practical approach, because if you can't prove it, then what good does that knowledge, what good do those teachings do for you other than just, making you feel good, making you feel a little bit better about yourself? But that's just keeping yourself right here. Move beyond being inspired to being enlightened. So, how can we move forward? Well, we can stop identifying with these things that we could see are not so true, like our mind. We can start with that. Now, what's one of the ways that we seek truth through the mind and we identify with the mind? Well, we try to use our mind to understand what all of this is about, what the universe is about, what spirituality is about. And this is the problem. This is why people get stuck on the path, is they try to understand it through the mind. But the mind will never, ever understand it. You'll never get it in the mind. I mean, as good as those concepts might be, you might have formed some really good metaphors for explaining the truth, but it's just a metaphor. Real truth is something that is experiential, that is just in the moment, right here, right now. Just like experiencing the fact that you are right here, right now, that you cannot refute. Right? That is starting from the experiential level, and we can expand this. So take a look at how you are trying to figure out what these masters are talking about, how you can go free, how you can be realized yourself. Just take a look. In what way are you trying to figure that out? Can't you see? You're trying to figure it out? How do I do it? What do they mean? What does that look like? What does that feel like? Oh, it must be incredible, right? And what are you doing? You're trying to imagine that in the mind. You're trying to formulate that answer and get it through the mind. And the mind loves that. The mind begs you to go to it for all the answers. And it'll say, hey, right, anytime you don't know what to do, I'm right here for you. I'll help you figure that out. And what does your mind do? It sends you all over the place to go listen to this person, to go read this book, to go practice this, to go do this other thing, go tap on yourself, go stand on your head, right? It sends you all over the place, makes you do the work looking for the answer. And because you're chasing the mind and you're doing this, doing that, and you still don't find the answer that way, what does your friend the mind do? What is its conclusion after all of that work? It says, hey, well, you haven't been able to do it? Here's what I recommend. Beat yourself up. Right? Doesn't your mind tell you that? Like, oh, you're just not good enough. You're not doing it right. You're missing something, or there must be something broken about you, some dark trauma, something that it's just you're not worthy. You don't deserve it. Just all of this garbage. It's telling you why you can't do it. And the logical conclusion of that: beat yourself up, or just feel frustrated, be down on yourself, judge yourself, criticize yourself. Right? Now, even though it's your mind that is leading you to that conclusion, who is it that picks up that conclusion and carries it out? Who is it that's beating yourself up? Because take a look. Aren't you beating yourself up over that? Now, how does it help you to beat yourself up? Does that help you find the truth? By being negative on yourself? And who's doing it? You're doing it, aren't you? It's simply your decision. Even though the suggestion is coming from your mind, it's ultimately you who decides, yep, I'm going to beat myself up. Now, if that doesn't help you, and you're the one who's doing it, that's good news. Because you're the one who's in the driver's seat. Now you can recognize it. And now you can decide. I'm going to be positive and love myself, or I'm going to continue being negative and beat myself up. Now, which do you prefer? I'm assuming you're preferring to love yourself, to be positive. Now, you might be thinking, I love myself all the time. But just notice, if this thought comes up, are you running back to your mind to defend yourself, going, oh no, I do this? You're relying on your mind to console you, saying, yeah, I love myself all the time. Don't rely on your mind. Just catch yourself. Really be observant. Are you doing it? Are you disapproving of yourself? And that's pretty much a given. If you're really honest with yourself, you can see you're not so happy that you've been on the path maybe for decades and you're still not there. And maybe if you're honest with yourself, you could see, yeah, well, even though I kind of repeat these things and, I try to practice being positive, but honestly, I do feel kind of negative a lot. And deep down, I feel like, yeah, I'm really not getting there. And yeah, sometimes I am kidding myself. Now that's okay. See, we're not going to go into beating ourselves up for beating ourselves up, but just catching ourselves for the fact that we're beating ourselves up. And it's now a simple decision to turn that ship around. So again, what do you decide? Do you decide to be positive or do you decide to be negative? Positive, right? So, here's where it's nice and simple. Could you let go of disapproving of yourself? See, if you're doing it, right? If you're just sitting there going, oh, yeah, I just haven't gotten there. I'm just kind of stuck. And just down on yourself. Could you let go of being down on yourself? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself? Yes or no? So it's just a decision. Yes or no? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And could you let go of disapproving of yourself a little bit more? And a little bit more. And could you let go of disapproving of yourself even more? And even more. And even more. Now, how does that feel? Notice the difference? Just notice if you feel a little bit lighter. Like you've just unloaded some weights off of you. Feel that? And that's how effective you are when you make the right decisions. You see, when you're identifying with your mind, that thing that is not true, that mind starts taking over. And you hand your power over to that thing and you just let it run automatically. Basically, you put yourself on automatic rather than being self-determined. And when your mind is running on automatic, and it's often running this way unconsciously, you see, this tendency to judge yourself and beat yourself up, like, you wouldn't do that consciously. Sometimes you do. But, really consciously, you wouldn't hurt yourself that way. But unconsciously, when you look at it, it's like going on all the time. And that's because we just made a habit of handing our power over to the mind and leaving ourselves on automatic this way. But when you just come back to the truth of here I am, and what's going on? Am I trying to use this mind that doesn't understand and really never will understand what these masters are talking about, and trying to use that to know and get there? That's crazy. That will never take me there. And it just inevitably leads me to beat myself up, and I end up doing that. And so when you just catch yourself and go, okay, that's just silly, and I'm the one who's doing it all, so now I'm going to take charge and turn that around. You see, you get fast results. And this lighter feeling, this is an experience of what these masters are talking about. This is an experience of the I amness. Now let's let this experience grow and expand. You see, you're already feeling lighter. Now, could you give yourself some approval? And don't go to the mind for this. See, a lot of us on the spiritual path, this is another trap where we fall into our mind. When we try to be mentally positive, like when we try to give ourselves approval, we'll try to do it, we try to rationalize it. Like, oh, well, I'm a good person. I'm nice to people. I always do good things. And because of that, I'll give myself approval. No, that's not what I'm talking about. See, that's rationalizing it. What I'm talking about is just loving yourself for no reason, with no strings attached, with no agenda, without trying to get something out of it. Just loving yourself just for the heck of it. See, could you just like yourself a little bit? Just start with that. Could you like yourself a little bit? Right here, right now. Just because. No reason. Just because. And could you like yourself a little bit more? And could you like yourself a little bit more? And could you give yourself some more approval? Just right here, right now. And could you give yourself some more approval? Just as you are. And some more. And could you give yourself some more approval? and some more. And even more. And even more. And could you give yourself even more approval? And a little bit more. And what are you experiencing now? Do you feel lighter? And notice, do you feel a bit quieter in your mind? Is your mind like settled down a bit? Emptied out? See, this little process here, this is a great way of getting out of identifying with that mind, that thing that's not true, and finding this truth experientially, which you cannot deny right now with this lighter feeling. And just the sense of, I am. And nothing needs to change for me to just love myself and to feel myself and just be myself right now without any agenda. And notice, from this place, it's not like you go brain dead. In fact, you have more inspired answers. You're actually accessing an intelligence that's beyond the mind. And this way you can start experiencing and proving what some of these masters describe as omniscience, omnipresence, and so on. And notice how fast this is. Like immediate results. So, what I'm saying here is just watch yourself. And if you're serious about being on the path, and not just being a poser, not just being a spiritual poser, saying all the right things, acting the part, but really going there, doing what it takes to take your power back, to let go of identifying with the untruth and only identify with the truth. Now, there are some deeper aspects of letting go of the untruth so you can recognize the real truth that are simple and practical. If you want to get into that more, then go to my website and get on the email list. That way you'll learn more about Lester's teachings and the depth of, what he discovered. And like I said, Lester is a great master. You rarely hear a master talk as practically about this stuff as Lester does. And so you can experience some of that too when you get on the email list. So I'll put that link up above and also down in the description below. Now, if you like this, if you experience something here, let me know by hitting the like button below. And if this is valuable to you, then share this video, because let's help people get on the right track, because collectively we are all in a great place where we can all move forward and collectively step into a mastership and help ourselves and really help the world. All right? So thank you for participating and taking this experience with me. I really enjoy sharing Lester's work with you. So I'm happy to have you here. Keep it up, and I'll see you on the next video.